Hey everyone, time for another discussion video, and this time I'm going to be talking about just how effective has Blizzard's whole hype and marketing scheme and all that stuff been for Warlords of Draenor. And I know that you're probably thinking, well, guess what? I don't care. Well, sure, fair enough, but I think that this is going to end up being an interesting video, so watch on. First of all, I'll go over some of the general numbers and some of my observations, then I'll talk about what I believe the problems are, and then maybe a few solutions. I do appreciate how Blizzard is being more open currently, and how they're definitely trying to keep us in the loop more, but I think they could do a better job overall, and when I say better job, I mean they could basically do something that would provide the community with more information, but also, from Blizzard's perspective, maintain that expansion hype that, say, Cataclysm had before its launch. So first of all, what I think some of the numbers and issues are. Well, with the Warlords of Draenor Alpha, it initially went out to Twitch streamers, and then the second wave of invites just kind of filled in a few of the YouTubers who weren't in the first wave, and that was awesome. But the thing that I've noticed is that on Twitch, sure, the stream numbers did basically double for a few days. It was essentially at like, maybe, if you'd imagine Soda Poppin' was on all the time, that was the kind of increase we saw on Twitch.tv numbers, and that's great. 20 to 30,000 continuous viewers is equal to a lot more unique viewers, so I think that they did do pretty well with Twitch, but other than that, I don't really think that they've done a really great job. In fact, I would be rather surprised if the wider World of Warcraft community, I don't even think community is the right word, but if the wider player base actually knows about Frostfire Ridge. I mean, sure, they know it exists, but how many of them have seen any content from that? How many of them have seen YouTubers and streamers having a look at the new garrisons? I'd argue not that many in comparison to the player base as a whole. And I think that there are a few different reasons for that, and I'll cover that more in the problem section of this video, but Twitch itself, in my opinion, is pretty insular in that it's got the Twitch audience, but not a great deal more. It's, you know, that kind of like hardcore audience. I think while they did appeal to that successfully, they didn't really reach a wider penetration. Now, looking at YouTube videos, honestly, I'm a little bit surprised at how things have been sort of underperforming. Now, I don't mean this from my own personal perspective. I was in a week late, so obviously I don't really expect to get anything major with Frostfire Ridge, but even looking at, say, Fat Boss, like, their videos that got featured by MMO Champion did fantastic. They got a lot of views, a lot of subscribers. I've looked at their numbers. That's all awesome. But now, I think I'm getting about half the daily views they are. But you can just see, like, they're really just being used as an example, as a major channel that had top-notch coverage of the new features. Yet, the views are maybe a little bit lackluster in comparison to what I would have expected from, say, the Cataclysm beta period. And I keep on talking about the Cataclysm beta period because I think that was the last beta that was limited enough to actually allow for this giant big YouTube audience and the kind of all the fan site hype and all that stuff going on. I just don't feel like it's happened this time around. So overall, I'm just a little bit concerned about the numbers, and even just looking at my own comments and things like that, I think that people are just getting a little bit burnt out on the entire endeavor. Now, with some numbers talked about, let's move on to what I think the actual problems and causes are. First of all, Warlords of Draenor has undoubtedly ran into some production issues. They have, I could 99% for sure tell you that they have probably missed many internal deadlines with various features. Lots of things have went back to the drawing board a little bit, then came back in a sort of new iteration. I mean, hell, we're at this stage with garrisons where, like, what, a few months before the expansion's supposed to come out, they actually went back, decided that it's only going to be one main garrison, then they had to develop the whole outpost feature, and just a lot of things like that have happened. And that's meant that the Warlords of Draenor news, hype-ish machiner thingy-mabobber has had to last far longer. It's been going since November, it's now June, and what have people been getting? Tiny amounts of blogs and things like that, just enough to kind of string them on from time to time, and I think that's actually burnt a lot of people out. And it's got to the stage that now we're at the alpha, but people are just like, oh, I don't care, I've been hearing about this for 8 months, I'll come back when it actually launches. And I wouldn't blame people for thinking that. In fact, I think that's one of the major things that's going on at the minute, and perhaps it is just a product of Warlords of Draenor's longer development cycle and some of those rather unfortunate issues. Then I also think that a lot of people maybe got a little bit burnt out by the whole alpha dropping in April when, like, basically on the day that Elder Scrolls Online launched. And a lot of people saw that, they were like, oh wow, goody, alpha's coming, there's loads of data mining stuff going on, this is fantastic. And then nothing actually really came of it. And this is not the surprising thing, I got more views and coverage and stuff like that from that initial alpha patch notes thingy than I actually got from the alpha itself, and I think that's just one little case, and I've looked at other YouTubers' numbers, they've pretty much had the same thing, but that's just one of the other sort of cases where I think people have just been burnt out over time. So, problem number one is just the Warlords of Draenor release schedule, how things have had to be drawn out, and look, it's just a product of what's happened internally at Blizzard. There's not really a great deal we can do about it now. It does seem like they're finally on track with the expansion. I'd imagine they won't be radically changing any features or things like that. Really, I think these delays only come from the large new features like garrisons. Blizzard know how to make a raid, they know how to make a dungeon, a quest zone, all those various things. So I think that stuff's all fine. It's just getting garrisons right and a few other the newer elements and systems that are coming in with the expansion. So maybe the new dungeon finder thingy and, you know, all that guff. Right, so there's the first problem. Let's move on to the problems that I think Blizzard actually have a little bit more control over. Now, I don't believe that the blogs were too effective. Basically, the thing with the blogs is they were very unreliable, and when they did come out, some of them were really good and some of them were not so good. A perfect example, a while ago they released a blog on garrisons in which they detailed, well, they didn't detail, they mentioned outposts and a few other things. That was great. That was part 1 of 4, and part 2 of 4 has not came around yet. When you make a blog or something like that, you really do set an expectation for people, and I don't think Blizzard have really done a good job of fulfilling that expectation. When blogs have came out, some have been fantastic, some have been a little boring, and the inconsistency is annoying in terms of the content, but also the inconsistency in terms of their release is a problem. Now, I get that they can't do blogs on everything, and I get that maybe if they were doing bi-weekly blogs, I think that's 2 every week, whatever, and then maybe they'd run out of content or something like that. Well, I think they should easily be able to make weekly blogs. I could probably draft out a damn schedule for them if they wanted. I mean, come on, I'm the guy who has made patch 5.4 last for however many months I have. I'm pretty sure that I could manage rustling up some weekly blogs. I mean, hell, there's 4 parts of garrisons, maybe a look at a new dungeon, a look at a new raid, a look at another new raid, looking at the various art things, so 1 every week for the various races, you know. Okay, obviously some of that is production dependent, but I think that if they thought the blogs through a little bit more, it could have been more effective than it currently is. Another issue with the blogs is that it's long-form writing, and unfortunately a lot of people are just not willing to really listen to that. That's an unfortunate thing, but I suppose a blog is a blog and you can't really do a great deal more. So blogs maybe not 100% effective, and I think they could be done better. Another issue is also a written issue, and that's the patch notes. Now, the patch notes are great. I think that they've done a really good job with being clear, and for the most part, they have detailed their actual sort of design philosophy and their reasons for changing things. But there have been times when they really have failed in that regard. So, for an example, there was an update of the patch notes where they removed active mana regeneration and then gave no explanation for a few days. The same has happened to a few different classes. I think that maybe they should just have either under every sort of major class change or something like that, or maybe just at like a little paragraph that can constantly change based on the current thing they're tooling around with, but just something to communicate to people what this all means. I don't think they've done a fantastic job of that, and maybe just on the class change front, they could do better. So that's one thing. And then another problem with the patch notes is often they just kind of get pulled by fan sites before Blizzard actually sort of fix them up. I feel bad saying this, but a few iterations of the patch notes have had some problems in them and some inconsistencies. That gets picked up by the fan sites, and then Blizzard fixes it in their blog, but maybe it takes a little bit longer for the fan sites to fix it up, so maybe a little bit more proofreading would be awesome, but I understand that with all the different classes and things that are being changed, it must get really confusing having to write those patch notes, because from what I believe, it's written only by one guy, so, like, he's been writing a lot of words. Alright then, another problem I think is that they've really struggled to reach a wide audience. As I said earlier, they did a pretty okay job with Twitch, but not a great job with Twitch. I mean, come on, what does Warlords of Draenor Alpha equal? Maybe another 10 or 15,000 viewers for World of Warcraft on Twitch. That's the same as Soda Poppin turning on his stream. So that's not a wide audience, at all. It's a good audience, it's solid, it's nice, it's great for the people who are involved in that, but it's not really a giant audience at all, is it? I think that what they really need to do is get things out to as many people as possible, so, well, I've got solutions for that I'll talk about in the solutions section, but basically I don't think they really did a great job with the wide audience, as I said about the Twitch stuff. Also, with YouTube, I just think that a lot of YouTube people, other than those who have, well, like, Fat Boss and stuff, who've been able to have their things featured in MMO Champion, have just found it hard to get traction. That's one thing I've noticed. I think that's just, as I said, because of the burnout due to the production time of Warlords and how we've had to stretch this news out for so long. And then I think blogs, once again, they've got a reach problem wherein they just go up on the World of Warcraft website, maybe MMO Champion and Wowhead, but I'm not convinced that, say, you're getting 40% of the World of Warcraft player base to actually see that blog, or even be aware of its existence. So there are definitely audience problems there. And then I also think that they have completely underutilized the video format. Now that's from their own perspective, not really from, I don't know, somehow using us YouTubers. No, they could definitely make better video content. Currently we've had WoW Source, which has got solid views, actually, but they've been extremely infrequent, and they've also been quite long. Here's the thing that I'll say about those kinds of long-form videos. They can be really interesting to the hardcore fans and people who are really interested, so, like, me, and people who are really just into WoW a lot. But for the general audience, a 30-minute long video about things like that is just not of interest. They're not going to watch it for that long. And I'd imagine the Blizzard know, because they'll see that maybe about 40% through the video, they only have a 50% retention rate, and by the time you get to the end of the video, maybe they're on a 25% retention rate, or something even lower. That's not a great way of getting information across to people. And I think that there are just a few other ways in which they could use video better than they currently do. Alright, then another problem, and I know I am railing on about these problems, but another problem is Twitter, in a way. Now, first of all, I want to say I love how active Blizzard are on Twitter. It's really great for many of us, because, like, look at Zarm, he's got like 40,000 followers and stuff like that. It's good. Celestalon's got 19,000. There's lots of great information going out there, but they still need to keep in mind that Twitter isn't a ginormous audience, though I suppose they can rely on the fact that the important tweets are reposted by MMO Champion and by Wowhead. Still though, Twitter, like, whenever a big thing is said on Twitter, I think there should usually be an accompanying blue post or just something to get it out into the hands of more people. Generally they do that, but there have been one or two times where it hasn't been great. But yeah, look, Twitter, I think they're doing a good job. They just need to realize that it's definitely not a giant sort of appeal thing. Alright, so there are probably other things that I could talk about under the problem section. But before we close this off, I just want to address one little concern. So a lot of people have said that Blizzard are timing their alphas and betas and stuff with the release of other games. Well, Zaram recently did a Twitter post in which he said, look, our internal production schedule is not affected by any other games. And that's actually definitely true. They don't hold back production for the sake of other games. But what they do hold back is announcements. That's very clear. We had the alpha patch notes come out in the release date of The Elder Scrolls Online, and then we had the alpha itself come out pretty much in the release date of WildStar. Now, they can argue that correlation doesn't equal causation, but they have a vested interest in countering those big announcements and things like that. So, yeah, look, I think their announcements are certainly timed with things like that. And while it is good, I think that if they could try to maybe just go one day before some of those big games, then they could kind of get their hype going and get people really excited before another game comes out. I don't know, but I just thought it was worth mentioning that because I'm foreseeing people talking about it in the comments. And yeah, look, it's not like they're holding back the development of garrisons so that they can do a release of them during another game's launch. None of that actually affects internal production. It's just whenever the PR machine starts to crank. That's, you know, when other games' release dates actually matter. Anyway, so there's a few of the problems and a bit of a clarification. Let's talk about some solutions and things that I would suggest that Blizzard do. The first one is give Lore a budget and get him to make videos. The guy's got a great voice for video, he's talented at doing video stuff, he was a YouTuber before he was a community manager, and video content is ultra cheap in comparison to traditional marketing methods. It really is. It's so damn cheap. Okay, I know that from my own little personal perspective, spending, I don't know, I've probably spent over $1,000 in additional things on top of my computer at the minute, but guess what? For Blizzard, $1,000 is nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. So it's not even a drop in the bucket. It's like a tenth of a drop that is in the bucket. It is hardly any money. So they could, in a very cost-effective manner, just get Lore to record one extra little 5 or 10 minute thing every week. Believe me, it wouldn't take much time. And get that to go up in the main World of Warcraft page. So it could be every week a different thing, like, today Lore shows you the garrison, today Lore shows you this thing, and that thing, and that thing. And this, like, I'm saying this because I think it would work, because they could also integrate this into the Battle.net launcher. It would be embedded in various things. Here's another example. So when PC Gamer does an article on World of Warcraft's new garrison feature, a lot of people in a website like PC Gamer or Polygon or Kotaku, by the way, don't read Kotaku for Pete's sake, it's a load of balls. Anyway, when people are reading those sites, often they just kind of see the headline, they see the picture, they scroll down to find a trailer or a video, and then they're done. So if someone sees World of Warcraft Warlords of Draenor Garrison feature preview or something from PC Gamer, they scroll down and they see that, oh look, here's a handy video embedded with one of the Blizzard people talking about, you know, their feature. That's great. It also is very good for Blizzard's control of information. They can reveal what they want, when they want, in a method that's extremely effective. I can tell you, or at least I would very much imagine, that a 5-minute video is going to have more traction than a larger blog. You can say more in, well, you can't say more in a video, but you can say things in a, I just think, a more effective way because it's more personable than in a blog. So yeah, just give Lore a budget, get him to set aside a little bit of time and do video content. I think that would be really great. And definitely a wider audience than the written stuff. And if they could dial that into maybe a 5 or, yeah, let's just say a 5 or 10 minute little chunk of time, then I think it would be great, because that's the perfect amount of time for just getting someone to drop in while they're having a cup of tea or something. Of course, I would say a cup of tea. Come on, I live in Ireland. Anyway, so it's just enough time for people to drop in, have a cup of tea or coffee or something, watch a 5-minute video, then be done and go on with their day. It's a very digestible format. I know it's not the format that I personally go for, but that's just because, you know, I've kind of got different values in a big company who's, you know, interested in all that stuff. And look, I know this would absolutely cannibalize some of the content that I do or maybe other YouTubers do, but look, these are like solutions and suggestions that I'm giving to Blizzard because I think that if I were in the position of making key decisions about the marketing and about all that stuff, this is what I might do. Okay, so another thing that I think they could do is better launcher integration for their new content. So if there's a new blog or video coming out, then maybe they move over that shiny new mount advertisement and stick it in the launcher. I think that would be very good. In fact, I would even like it if they had a separate tab or page on the launcher that would have a curated list of Warlords of Draenor updates. So it could have some select community things, maybe from approved sources like Wowhead and their friends, but also lots of Blizzard-produced content. So if you're a casual World of Warcraft player that doesn't stay in the loop with all the fan sites and stuff, which, by the way, is the majority of people, then you look in your launcher and you just see this tab that's like Warlords of Draenor, News and Information or something. You click on that and you're like, oh, look at this. I've now found out new things and I am more excited about the expansion. Yay, that accomplishes good goals for everyone. So they could do that. Then another thing just about the blogs. Look, blogs are not hard to make. They are pretty fast. In terms of typing, it doesn't take a lot of time to type out 2,000 words. They should do more of them, and they should ensure that they do a fantastic job of explaining changes. If they could get some sort of regular-ish schedule, then it'll be good for getting people to come back. I think that it's a little bit criminal to do part 1 of 4 of a Garrison series, then leave it for 3 weeks. Because while some things may not actually be implemented in the game, if they don't have some of their main core designs done, then they're in trouble. And yeah, they will have main core designs done, so they just need to talk about them in a few blogs and just try to keep people interested that way. And then of course combine that with the other suggestions like better launcher integration so that people actually see the blogs. Then another thing that I think they should do is improve the patch notes by maybe having a paragraph or sentence under each change that comes with a clear, clarification of what a change means. People take changes in isolation. They don't think of the larger picture. If people will not think for themselves, then you need to think for them. These are the people who will often think whatever you tell them to think, as long as you provide the information in an effective, easily understandable, concise, and persuasive manner. Look, I know that sounds kind of a little bit evil, telling people what to think, controlling the flow of information, but that's how marketing works. It's all about just tricking people into thinking or doing whatever the hell you want them to do, and Blizzard could do a better job of that. What does Blizzard not want? They don't want people shouting and raging, so they should do a better job of trying to convince people that some of the class changes and things like that actually have a little bit of merit, rhyme, and reason to them. For the most part, they have done that, but as an example, the Arms Warrior just got updated. They slashed a bunch of abilities, added a few things, but there's no big paragraph underneath that says, hey, in the most recent update, we've actually changed the core priority system for ARMS so that it's going to be a little bit more like this. We think this might be more fun because it's more in tune with the core design philosophy, blah blah blah. Now that's the sort of thing that they might tweet out on Twitter, but come on, who the hell is going to read that? Maybe a few thousand people, maybe 10,000 people? That's the drop in the bucket again of the sort of core WoW subscriber base. Anyway, there's some problems, solutions, and things like that. I just thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about because I've actually seen a good bit of frustration from my subscriber base just about the way some of this has been handled. I've seen frustration from other YouTubers, from other community folks, and hey, it's worth talking about. So that's that talked about. Overall, though, I do think Blizzard are doing a better job, and as a company, they're moving in the right direction in terms of how they listen to their community. That's definitely very nice. Of course, I hope they don't listen to the community too much. It's always good to listen, but if you listen and take too much heed, then it just kind of, too many cooks spoils the broth. So I don't think they'll do that, but they've been doing a better job anyway of giving us new information, and I really do appreciate that. Also, from the perspective of a content creator, it is nice when a blog comes out because it gives me new things to talk about. So obviously I do have a vested interest in there being more blogs and things like that. However, some of my suggestions would cannibalize my own content, so really I think these are decently unbiased in that regard. Anyway, let me know what you think about how this has all been handled for Warlords of Draenor. Let me know what you think about their marketing and just the expansion itself. And the if I was to do a question of the video or question of the day, do you think that this 8-month, 9-month period, whatever, leading up to Warlords since the announcement has detracted from people's excitement about the alpha and beta? I'm really interested to hear that because it just seems like people are burnt out, and by the time the alphas actually came out, they're already burnt out, and they're just going to wait for the expansion to come out. Anyway, it'd be cool to hear that. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned to the channel for all the latest Warlords of Draenor information, discussion, and all those lovely things, and I will see you next time.